Hi Gastro Pals, it's Tiny Small Fry here again. It's a bit nippy outside the past couple of days, so we're going to make stew because it's lovely, warm and comforting. And it's going to be a nice, fragrant lamb stew. Let's go in the kitchen and get started. So we start off by adding a teaspoon of onion powder, which we add a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of turmeric, and a teaspoon of ground coriander. I've lifted the lid on the Ninja Foodi and placed a healthy glug of oil in there, ready to pan fry the lamb. So now we press sear and saute and start, and that will get it heated up. Into our heated oil we add 2 cloves of crushed garlic. And into that we add about a teaspoon of ginger paste or ginger puree. We're going to mix that round with our wooden spoon just to get it all round in the oil before we add in the lamb. So now we've added in our 500 gram bag of lamb cubes, which we've defrosted. And the object here is to get them nice and coated in the ginger and garlic oil and get them lovely and browned. So now we're going to add in 500 millilitres of lamb stock. I've used one of those little stock jelly cube things. So now we're going to take our pre-prepared spice mix and add in a little bit at a time, stirring it in as we go, just to make sure that we don't overspice it. It's quite fragrant, so I'm looking forward to this. And now we're going to add in a tin of chopped tomatoes with herbs and stir that through before we add in our casserole veg. And you could either use Mediterranean type vegetables with aubergines and courgettes, but I'm going to use the good old traditional carrots, leeks and potatoes and onions. So here you can see I pre-prepared some veg of carrots, swede, onions, leeks and potatoes. And we've added the veg now into our stew mix, so it's time to put the lid on with the valve open. With the lid on, we set the vent to open as we're slow cooking. Switch the power on and select slow cooker. Temperature's already high, so we just need to bump it up to 5 hours and press start. And we've already made sure that the vent is open to ensure that no pressure builds up whilst it's slow cooking. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that my hair's shrunk since I did the intro, and 5 hours is a long time, so I've given myself a haircut, and now I'm about to make the dumplings to go into the stew. So let's go to the kitchen and make the dumplings. So here's our 50 grams of flour, to which we add 23 grams of finely shredded suet. And now we're just going to mix that together with a fork just so that the suet's evenly distributed amongst the flour. You can of course buy dumpling mixes in the shop, and they're just as good, if not better, and quite cheaply available. But we're just doing this just to show you can make dumplings from scratch quite easily. Now we're going to add in 2.5 tablespoons of water. And use a fork to mix it in. And if it's a little bit too dry like I've made it here, we can add in another tablespoon of water just to get the right consistency in the mix. And if you actually go over the top and put too much water in, you can add a little bit more self-raising flour until you get to a nice sort of stodgy dough consistency that can roll up into a ball. Having reached the right consistency, we've now rolled our dumpling dough into a ball, and then we're going to split it out into 4 evenly sized dumplings. These only need to go in 30 minutes before the end of our cooking time, so I'll set these aside. But thanks to YouTube, we'll leap forward 3 hours and take the lid off and put our dumplings in. This smells so good already, but what we need to do is add a good old squeeze of honey and stir that through, just to add a little bit of background sweetness to the sauce. And we're just going to stir that honey through now before we pop the dumplings in and put the lid back on for the final 30 minutes of slow cooking. Right, just drop the first dumpling in. And what we need to do is make sure that the dumplings are submerged. That one's a bit sticky. Make sure they get submerged under the stew so that they don't harden, that they cook as nice soft dumplings. So now we're just going to pop the lid back on, and through the magic of YouTube, time leap forward 30 minutes. We're just mixing in a bit of the gravy from the stew into some corn flour, ready to pop it back in and thicken up the sauce. Now we've lifted our dumplings out of the way for the moment. Just pour the corn flour mixture in, and we're just going to stir that through before we add the dumplings back in and pop it on to simmer and saute for about 5 minutes, just to thicken the sauce up a bit. So we're just finishing off the simmer and saute mode. You can see it's thickened up really nicely. Can't wait to get this on the plate now. And now here it is, our fragrant lamb stew cooked in the Ninja Foodi with dumplings. And I'm sure you'll agree, it looks very nice, it tastes absolutely delicious. Bon appetit.